And welcome, everybody. Here we are, and I'll be on screen in just a second when we take down the closing slide. But hey, welcome, everybody. I'm Jim Vetter. I'm the Executive Director of the Social Emotional Learning Alliance for the United States. And welcome to the fifth session of our day-long SEL Day Summit. And this session is about how does SEL shape workplaces? And we have an amazing, very knowledgeable, talented speaker who will be joining us in just a second. But right now, let's take a look and give some credits to folks who've been organizing SEL Day. So if you just stick the slides up, please. The SEL Day 2025. Our theme this year is Skills for Success, Ready for the Future. And we have over 3,000 people have signed up for SEL Day, and many more are participating in SEL Day in a variety of ways across the United States and around the world. So let's find out, speaking of where folks are from, let's find out where you all are from. So go ahead right now, and in the comments of this live stream, go ahead and just type in and let us know where in the world you are right now. Because we are the folks who organized the SEL Day Summit and SEL Day in general. SEL for US has been working with the Urban Assembly and our international partner, 6 Seconds, and in close collaboration with the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, CASEL, and Committee for Children. And I see we've got folks here, and we can pop this up on the screen. We've got folks here from Rhode Island, Cincinnati, we've got New Jersey, we've got Colorado, Connecticut. Okay, we've got lots of folks coming in from different places. All right, I see Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Lots of, go ahead and you can continue even as we go and type in the chat. Michigan is here. You can let us know where all you're from. California is here. Fantastic. So go ahead and you can keep typing in where you're from. As we say, right now, we're going to give a thank you to the SEL Day sponsors. If you go to selday.org and look at the summit page, you'll see a couple of things there. You will see all of the upcoming summit sessions. There are 4 more summit sessions coming in this very rich day. This is also where the recording of this session and all of the other sessions will be there at selday.org in the summit area, so that you can find this recording and recordings of all of the other sessions. The first 4 sessions, I think, recordings are already posted there on the site. So you have those there for you to access at any time. We'd like to say a big thank you to our SEL Day sponsors, including returning sponsors, Lions Quest, Pure Edge, and Antioch University. Also returning, Ruler at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and Responsive Classroom and Fly 5. And new this year, we have as sponsor Wayfinder and Attachment Matters. And I see we've got more folks here from Texas. We've got lots of folks joining in right now. And we also want to give the big thank you to everybody on the SEL Day 2025 committee who helped organize all this. And also, you've been doing work. A lot of you have been carrying out SEL Day activities in your communities. So go ahead and claim your badges. If you go to the SEL Day site and look in the badges area, you click on login, you can create an account, and then you can claim badges for all the kind of SEL Day celebration activities you've been engaged with. Tomorrow, you're going to see, if you signed up for SEL Day or one of these sessions, you will get an email with a link to a very brief survey. It's just 6 questions long. If you would fill out that survey, it would help us a lot, as you would be joining with us in promoting the personal and interpersonal skills that young people need and employers want. So now, for this amazing session, this summit session, I would like to turn things over to Matt Nink, who will give a little introduction and then introduce our speaker. So Matt, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jim. Welcome, everybody. Please continue to drop your name and area where you're from into the chat as we go. I'm really excited to introduce our speaker. But before we do that, we have a really special, wonderful welcome from the governor of New Jersey, Tony Evers, who's a big SEL champion. He has proclaimed today on Wisconsin's SEL Day, like lots of other places around the country. But he issued an official governmental proclamation for that today is SEL Day in Wisconsin. So we'd like to hear from our governor directly.
Hello, Governor Tony Evers here. I declared 2025 the year of the kid in Wisconsin because I have long believed that what's best for our kids is what's best for our state. Social and emotional learning is critically important to doing what's best for our kids and supporting their growth and success both in and out of the classroom. From my time as State Superintendent of Public Instruction to my role as Governor today, I've been proud to champion the importance of social and emotional learning, a commitment shared by my wife Kathy in her work as First Lady as well. Kathy and I have seen that SEL programs have positive influences not only on our kids' long-term academic success, but also their ability to foster empathy, cooperation, and communication skills, which we know are essential in building strong, productive relationships in adulthood. I believe we have a responsibility to provide our kids with the tools they need to grow into thriving young adults. And providing kids with a strong foundation in social and emotional learning is central to that goal, because today's students are tomorrow's leaders after all. So I'm thrilled to help celebrate SEL Day here in Wisconsin and around the country. Together we can ensure our kids have the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to be their best and fullest selves. So with that, happy SEL Day, folks, and take care.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm a faculty member at the Yale School of Management, and I've had the good fortune as a psychologist and research scientist of studying emotions, emotion regulation, and emotional intelligence, as well as doing research on the topic. So I'm really delighted to share a few ideas with you on the topic today and how we can improve both our own emotional intelligence, emotional well-being, and that of those around us. So I'm going to share my slides with you now. Can you see my slides? Yes, all right. So I'm just going to start us off with an idea here. And I wanted to share also a little bit of background. I grew up in Paris, France, which sounds, just so lovely. And it is in many ways. But on the other hand, people were really grumpy and sort of negative. That's kind of the philosophy on the street. And so growing up as a child, you feel cynical. As a child, you feel a little bit of hopelessness. And so actually, not just a little, just a lot, actually. And so when I came to the US for college, I was happily surprised and also refreshed by the attitude in the US, which is one of hope and positivity, right? And potential. Anything is possible. You can do anything you set your mind to, the American dream in a way. And I really appreciated that positivity because the US is actually such a positive place overall, especially in comparison to the culture that I grew up in. And but after a few years, I also saw that people tend to identify with what they do. They think I am what I do. And there's a certain amount of suffering that goes into the sort of go, go, go mentality that people embrace and that sometimes runs them into the ground. So after college, I went to China for a couple of years. And in China, I saw people who had absolutely nothing, but were grateful for everything. And there was so much resilience. And I saw so much poverty there in Tibet and India. And yet people were so resilient, happy, positive from a really deep place. And it really made me think, we talk about mental health, but this is mental wealth. You can have everything and be really unhappy. We see that in a lot of Western cultures, but you can also have absolutely nothing and yet have this inner freedom, inner happiness, inner sovereignty. And so that really set me on the trajectory to thinking about, well, how can we increase our emotional well-being and resilience? How can we help our children do the same thing? How can we all foster that inner strength, that emotional sovereignty, that emotional intelligence that keeps us going when times are rough? And, things have been quite intense on the planet over the last couple of years. And it just feels like it now more than ever is a time for us all to learn how can we better handle our mind, our emotions, emotions, our well-being, so we can be as resilient as we can be and show up at our greatest potential every moment and help our children do the exact same thing. So let's launch into a little bit of the science here. And I do want to start us off with this idea that the state of our mind determines the quality of our life. So we can think, oh, if I have all these things, then I'll be happy. If I have enough money and if I have this relationship and all that. But you can have all those things and still be frustrated. And so let's just imagine here, you're finally on that beach vacation you've been waiting for. You're at the beach, your toes are sinking in the warm sand, and it's sunset, and you just got there, right? And day one of your vacation, but you're upset. You're upset. Does it matter that you're on the beach in, say, Hawaii, looking at the sunset, with a coconut in your hand? Does it matter if you're upset? No, it doesn't matter at all. And the same thing, you could be stuck in traffic here, and it looks like you're going to be in traffic for another 3 hours. You have nothing to drink, you're hungry and so forth, but you're got the music on, you're in a good mood, you're dancing in there, you're singing. It doesn't matter. The quality of your life depends on the state of your mind. And that is really good news for us, because there's only so much we can do about our environment. We don't have a lot of control over what happens to us on a day-to-day, but what we do have a say over is the state of our own mind. And that is why I call emotional sovereignty. And that is something that we can cultivate. We can also teach our young people to cultivate. So, emotions matter. There's this sense that, emotions are not something one should consider about. They're not that serious, but actually they impact everything we do. So they impact your ability to pay attention, to remember things, to learn new things. On a day when you're stressed or burned out, it's hard to pay attention. It's hard to remember something. It's hard to learn something new. Our decision-making is impacted by our emotions. When we're very stressed, we look at the world through a lens of fear. We make fear-based decisions. Our relationships are impacted by our emotions. Often it's the people we love the most and want to hurt the least that get impacted by our inability to handle our own negative emotions. And our physical health, we know that stress, for example, is at the root cause of many modern diseases via inflammation. So stress increases inflammation, which is a root cause of many diseases like diabetes and cancer, etc. And obviously, emotions impact our mental health. There's this idea that you're supposed to just sort of leave your emotions at the door, and yet it doesn't really work that way, And so here, what have you learned? And I'd love to for you to use the chat here and let me know what have you learned to do with your big bad negative emotions? What does society generally teach us as to what we're supposed to do with our big bad negative emotions? So go ahead and use the chat and let me know, what is it that that we learn to do? Yeah, ignore them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, ignore them, right? Stuff them. Exactly. That's, I've talked to audiences from around the world, and again, that's the same answer: suppress them. It doesn't matter where you're from, while certain cultures may be more fiery and more expressive in terms of their anger and so forth, but that's also not necessarily a constructive way to do that. Okay, good. So I keep seeing that suppression idea. Now I want to ask you next, how's that working out for you? So tell me, how is suppression working out for you? Tell me that in the chat. How's suppression working out for you? What happens when you suppress? What happens when you suppress your emotions? I'm going to share with you what the science says, but I want to know, because you already actually know. I'd love to see. Okay, just delays the problem. Yep. What else? What do you notice? What happens when you suppress your emotions? It leads to depression. Yes. It doesn't work. It leads to inner angst and pain. It builds up. I'm reading off the comments here. It builds up until you explode or shut down. That's right, Chris. You either explode in this sort of inappropriate way that leaves people wondering what happened, or we shut down. The emotions increase. William, thank you. Yes. Some cultures, communities see this as a weakness when you don't suppress. Correct. Yes. And I would probably include our culture in that too, US culture. So, okay, so let me just share with you what the data shows, because what the data shows is exactly what your experience is. And in fact, the emotion gets stronger. So when, let's say you're suppressing anger, the emotion actually feels stronger. And you can feel, as Antoinette just said, it can lead to bitterness. You can feel physically sick as well. So it either explodes, right, or it implodes. And we've all, maybe perhaps experienced like a stomach ache or a migraine from just keeping things inside. And in fact, if you look at the brain, and I want to show you here, if you look at this top picture, so when you suppress emotions, it actually increases activation in the emotion centers of the brain. Do you see that? So when you suppress your emotions, it makes them worse. It's like you're taking a soda can and shaking it up, right? So that is certainly not working out for us. And I got to share something with you. That's my favorite part of this research is that, why do we suppress emotions? We suppress emotions because we want to have civil, it's more civil than say like spilling our latte on our boss's keyboard, right? Because we're mad at them. Like that's just not going to be a really good idea for us in the long run. So we suppress them, but here's what happens when you suppress them. So I want you to think, does it ever happen to you that you're talking to someone or you meet someone and you just don't feel comfortable and you can't explain it and you're like, I don't know why, but I just don't feel comfortable around this person, right? You get this sort of weird feeling and you can't express it logically. Well, I want to share with you when you suppress your emotions, which you're trying to do in order to maintain a civil relationship with someone else, right? The other person's heart rate increases. So if I were suppressing anger right now, your heart rate would increase. So why does this happen? I'm gonna give you an animal related example here so that you can understand what happens. So you might have heard of equine facilitated therapy, right? So it's when a therapist and a horse work together to work with a patient. Because horses are very sensitive and that they can be very helpful. But if say the child that the patient comes up and it's a child and they're pretending not to be scared of the horse, right? They're like, I'm not scared, I'm cool, like there's nothing wrong. Guess what happens? The horse starts moving all over the place. The horse gets very agitated and very anxious. Why? The horse is as a prey animal, right? It's hyper alert to its surroundings, and it registers inauthenticity as threat. Do you see that? It registers inauthenticity as threat. As soon as the child says, I'm scared, the horse calms down. Why? The horse doesn't understand English. But the horse's physiology registers the inauthenticity just like you do, and it puts up a red flag. And that's what happens. So here we are suppressing our emotions. We're trying to be civil. And actually what the research shows is it negatively impacts our relationships. So it's bad news all around. And it's so ironic that this is the only thing we've ever learned because, what's wild to me is that, no matter how many degrees you have, how many languages you speak, how many black belts you have, how many dishes you know how to cook, how many everything the amount of education most of us have about how to handle our big, bad, negative emotions is as much as a 5-year-old. Actually, I think 5-year-olds nowadays have more education than most adults have, because SEL is being introduced more early and into the curriculum, hopefully in most places. But, it's just so crazy when you think about it, is that most of us are running around. We've received lots of education, lots of training, but nothing about what to do with our emotions. And so we're left sort of struggling, and we do this suppression business, which is not doing us any favors. So let's look at the other, something that psychology has also looked at, which is this idea of reappraisal. Reappraisal is basically looking at the situation from a different perspective. You do this all the time. Let's say you get a parking ticket, but it allowed you to get to the store quicker, and you just think, okay, whatever, I'm just going to consider this a donation to my city. Okay, I kind of like the city. Or let's say you've been applying for this job, and it's you and another person applying for the job, and you're getting really close. One of you is going to get the job, and you get a call, and they say, hey, you know what? Sorry, we gave the job to the other person, and you can reappraise by thinking, you know what? I learned so much in the run up to this job, and my resume looks great. My interview skills are really sharp now, and I'm really prepared for the next time. So that's reappraisal, as opposed to going down the spiral of, oh my gosh, I wasted so much time, blah, blah, blah. We all know what that negative spiral sounds like, and it doesn't do us any favors. So reappraisal is basically looking at the situation from a different perspective, with more wisdom, etc. So if you look at the level of the brain here, when you reappraise, there's a reduction in activation in the emotion centers in the brain. And you use this all the time. And this is how it works, is that when you, so these are the emotion centers of the brain right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's the amygdala and these sort of back areas of the brain. And then you have the prefrontal cortex, which is this frontal area that basically uses wisdom, perspective, logic, reason to kind of talk your emotion centers down. It's just a parking ticket. It's not the end of the day. No big deal. That kind of thing. So I was in a lab in grad school, and we were looking at this, and there was this idea sort of reappraisal is going to solve the problems of the world. And I kept having a problem with this. I don't know if some of you in the audience are also thinking like, yeah, but, right? I kept thinking, yeah, but, like, there's just times when it's really hard to talk your way out of emotions. And have you ever tried to talk a toddler or a child out of a tantrum? It's almost practically useless. But the truth is that our brain does the same thing that their little brain does when we have a very strong emotion. When there's a really strong emotion, it is almost impossible to reappraise. That was my issue. Here, take a look. So here are the emotion centers of the brain. And what happens is when you have a lot of activation, guess what? There's loss of prefrontal regulation. Do you see that? Loss of prefrontal regulation. In other words, you're not able to think clearly and logically in that moment. And that is something that I think we've all experienced. And that may be something that, others, you may have tried that with others. Like, have you ever had that where someone comes up to you and is like, hey, you should just calm down. And you're just like, that is just not helpful in this moment. That is just not helpful. And that's also why never in the history of calm down has anyone calmed down by being told to calm down. And I think we can all sort of take a collective intention right now not to say that to anyone. But the question is, well, then what? Well, then what? What are we supposed to do when we have big emotions? What are we supposed to do when our children have big emotions, or the people around us? What are we supposed to do? So I'm going to share a story with you now. About 10 years ago now, my husband walked in the room and he was pale, and I said, what's going on? And he said, Jake was in an IED. So Jake was in charge of the last vehicle on a convoy going across Afghanistan. All the vehicles passed safely, but somehow his drove over a roadside bomb. Now, in that moment, I think we can't even imagine what that would be like. The extreme shock, trauma, noise, extraordinary pain of severe injury. In that moment, usually you would fall unconscious. But Jake remembered to do something in that moment that he had read in a book, which allowed him to not fall, into shock immediately, but allowed him to regain the ability to think clearly. It gave him the ability to use his prefrontal cortex again. Remember, in shock and great emotion, we lose the ability to think clearly. So what did he do? He did a breathing exercise. And because he engaged in this breathing exercise, what he did was, in that moment, it's kind of like bypassing the brain, right? You're going right into the nervous system, and he's calming the nervous system. And in so doing, had the ability to regain the ability to think clearly and to do his first act of duty, which was to check on the other service members in the vehicle. It gave him the presence of mind to do his second act of duty, which was to give orders, to call for help. And it gave him the presence of mind to tourniquet his own legs before falling unconscious. He was urgently transported to Germany in the Walter Reed, but Jake is alive today. And he was told, had he not done what he did, he would have died that day. He has prosthetics on both of his legs. He's lost both of his legs. So you can imagine the severity of his injury and pain on that day. And yet he's alive. He's well. He has family. He's doing great. So why do I share this story? Because I've conducted a number of studies on breathing for our well-being. And, in a time when we need things to work well, and work fast, we don't have a lot of time, and we need something that's going to help us hack the crazy, right? Hack the stress of our current days. And breathing is one of the fastest, best ways to do that. I'm going to share a few studies that we ran. But first, look, a quick summary of, those psychological approaches I was talking about. You can think of our top down, right? Mind driven, like, okay, let me rethink. Let me, change your thoughts, change your life, right? There's a books by that title, this idea of like reappraisal. And yet, as we saw, that's not always possible. And so a bottoms up or body driven approach is going to help you calm the nervous system quickly so you can regain the ability to think clearly. We know that when we feel different emotions, it actually changes our breathing patterns. But when you change those breathing patterns, it can shift your emotions. So that is what the data shows. So we ran a study at Yale. So Yale is a place where undergraduate well-being, and not just Yale, I think most universities where undergraduate well-being over the course of a semester decreases mental health issues, increase anxiety, depression, fatigue, etc. And so we wanted to see, is there a way for us to prevent this decline and give the students resilience and sovereignty over their mental health? I worked with Mark Brackett at the Center for Emotional Intelligence. We ran that study through his center. And what we wanted to look at was which kind of intervention might be most effective. So we had a breathing protocol called Sky Breath Meditation, which is a breathing protocol that is offered by Sky Schools, which is a nonprofit, as well as Sky Campus Happiness. So that was the group that we asked to come and help us with that. And we also ran a mindfulness-based stress reduction group, and that was taught by, again, an accredited mindfulness teacher. And then we ran an emotional intelligence group. So this is Mark Brackett's emotional intelligence training. That was created at Yale. And then we had a control group. So students were randomly assigned to one of these groups over the course of a semester, received training throughout the semester, and we wanted to see which group is most resilient, which group does best. And what we found was that it was the group that did the breathing. So and what we found is that, their stress, in comparison to the control group, their stress decreased, their depression decreased, they had better mental health overall. And we really, one of the reasons we think that this breathing practice in particular was so effective is that, again, you're not just approaching the mind, you're not just trying to think your way out of it, or for some people, just approaching through the mind is just not going to work. But with breathing, you're not just calming the mind and coming into that sort of meditative state of mind, but you're also calming the nervous system. And we all know stress, anxiety, trauma are things that are very much felt in a physical way. And I can tell you, having worked also with veterans, which I'll present to you later, but we colleagues at Harvard ran a similar study to the one we ran at Yale. And what they found was that in comparison to a standard sort of stress training protocol, those who went through the breathing practice, they also showed more resilience in a stressful situation. So participants were placed in this sort of stressful situation where they had to give a speech on stage, etc. And they found that in anticipation of that, those who had done the breathing had less of a stress response. So it's kind of like when you go to the gym and so that your muscles are stronger, then you go about your day, your muscles are stronger. Here, it seems like the breathing is training people to be more resilient even when they get into a stressful situation. And I had the privilege of running and collaborating on several studies with veterans with trauma. So many of them had done traditional treatments and protocols and had not seen benefits from those. So many of those came to our study. And this is again, we looked at the Sky Breath Meditation that was offered through a nonprofit called Project Welcome Home Troops. And we had a control group that did not go through the training. So the group that did go through the training are in red, those in blue did not. And what we found was that after 1 week of learning this breathing protocol, their anxiety normalized. And this was maintained 1 month later, which is here time 3, and 1 year later, which is time 4, suggesting this sort of permanent return to normalcy. In fact, there is a documentary that was made about this, if you're interested, and that's why I'm allowed to have a photograph of one of our participants here, called Free the Mind, that you can watch on YouTube if you're interested. It's quite spectacular to see the before and after in these veterans. Literally, this one in the picture started smiling again. I had not seen him smile prior to the study. I'd known him for a little while. And what we wanted to see was, well, are they just saying they feel better because, they want to be nice, or do they actually feel better? And so we measured their startle response, which you see these little electrodes on his face. They measure how much someone startles to loud noises, etc., which is quite high for someone with a lot of anxiety and post-traumatic stress. And what we found here is that, and this is the second graph here, is that the more their anxiety, they reported that their anxiety reduced, the less of a stress response they showed physiologically, suggesting that our findings were indeed true findings. And so, here, I just always like to ask if you'd like to learn a little breathing exercise. Let me know in the chat, because then I'll do that. Give you a little taste. Are you interested? Yes or no? I'm not seeing anything. Oh, I'm getting some yeses. Okay. I think there's a little delay before my chats come in, but yeah, so let's do that. I can't teach you a protocol like the Sky Breath meditation that you could learn through Sky Schools if you're a teacher or you want to teach your students, or Sky Campus Happiness, which is for the universities, or Project Welcome Home Troops, which is for the veterans. But I can share with you like a short breathing practice that you can learn that is sort of similar to what Jake did. Okay, similar to what Jake did, so that you have sort of something in your back pocket to use on any day that you might like to. So what we're going to do is, when you breathe in, guess what happens to your heart rate? It goes up. It increases, and when you breathe out, it slows down. So this is a great way to freak out a nurse at your next doctor's visit. If you just breathe out really slowly for a while, they might ask you, which they asked me when I tried this once, they said, "Are you alive?" But here, this is a way for you to immediately sort of hack into your nervous system, calming it down. So that's what we're going to do. So let's close our eyes. I'll guide you through it. And yes, Thomas, I'm seeing your question here. The veteran program is called Project Welcome Home Troops. The school program and teachers program is called Sky Schools. The campus program is called Sky Campus Happiness. And then for the community members, they can learn it through a nonprofit called Art of Living. Okay, so let's have our hands on our lap, palms up, eyes closed. And we're going to breathe in and out through the nose, and I'll guide you as to the tempo. But first, I want you to sort of just check in with where you're at right now. So we're not going to change our breathing. I just want you to notice how you feel today, how your body feels. So just tune into your body. Notice where you are on a spectrum of fatigue. If it's very energized on the one hand, very tired on the other, just notice where you're at today. And then also notice there are thoughts that are always popping in and out of your mind. And at this moment, I just want you to imagine, if every thought were a car, what is the level of traffic? What's the level of traffic? Is it a highway? Is it a country road, or somewhere in between? So just notice for a moment. What's the level of traffic? And just notice any emotions that are there as well. Okay, now that remember earlier we were talking about the quality of your life depends on the state of your mind. So even just tapping in like this and noticing what the state of your mind is can be such a helpful tool as you go about your day. Let's say you're transitioning from work to home, and sometimes you get home and you want to be present, but your mind is at work. So just checking in like this for a few minutes before you walk in the door helps you assess, where am I at right now? Am I in a good place to do what I want to do next? If not, what can I do to shift it? And I will share with you a breathing exercise that might very well help here. So keeping our eyes closed, and try to do your inhale and exhales through the nose for this exercise. And if you can't, at least try to do the inhale through the nose. Okay. So keeping your eyes closed, let's take a breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, and breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Fill your lungs. Hold. And breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. And breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. And breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. And breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, hold, and breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Fill your lungs. Hold. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. And breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Come back to normal breath, keeping your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed. And just notice how you feel. Notice any changes in the traffic in your mind and how you feel. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Notice how you feel with the eyes open. Any changes? And please use the chat to let me know. What did you notice? Did you notice a change in the traffic and how you feel? What did you notice? What do you notice? We did the breathing exercise for about 3 minutes. You're welcome, Deborah. I'm glad you liked the practice. Would love to know if we can always think about, we can listen to so many people telling us so many things, but at the end of the day, you're your own lab. You are your own scientist in your own lab, and you will see what makes a difference for you. And that's why I always think it's really important to have an experience. So very calming, driving speed in the car decreased, instant change, positive, relaxed, more relaxed, less stressed about what I'm missing while participating today. Great, I'm so glad. Listen, we did this for about 4 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, and it gives you sovereignty over the moment. It calms your mind. It brings you back to a state of mind that is happier, that is calmer. And yes, and oftentimes, you can feel that, everything is stressful, work is stressful, this is hard, the news is bad, this and that, and then we can feel overwhelmed, and that becomes bigger than us, right? But when you can start to calm your mind down, calm the traffic, it brings you back into a place of positivity, and your mind is bigger than all that stuff out there, and you can show up as your best self, right? So if all that stuff out there feels more powerful, then we feel stressed, we feel small, we feel out of control, and we show up not as our best. But if our inner mind has been cultivated to be more sovereign, to be calmer, to be in a more centered place, then we actually have more power over the quality of our life. We can show up at our best self. And the other thing is this, and as an emotion researcher, I can tell you this, but I don't need to tell you this actually, because you've experienced this. Where have you ever been in a situation where you're feeling just fine, and all of a sudden someone walks in and they're really stressed, and suddenly you're anxious, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious. Or you're feeling fine, and someone comes in and they're angry, and next thing you know, you're flying off the handle. And you're like, what happened? I was fine. Emotions are contagious. We know that. But instead of being sort of a victim to whatever's coming our way, whatever the headlines are stressful and this, and just being subjected to it, you, by cultivating that inner calm, inner sovereignty, you can show up and you have an impact on others, a positive impact, a calming impact. I heard of this principal once speaking. She had a very dedicated breathing and meditation practice, and she said, she was a principal. When I walk through the auditorium, I can literally feel people calm down, because she has that in her. Just walking down, the children were calming down. And that is the power we have. Sometimes we can feel powerless because so much is happening. Who am I? I'm just this little person. Actually, you have a lot of power, because when you show up with that calmness, you become the de facto leader. Because right now, especially right now, with things being so fast, so much coming at us, so much crazy, all the things, when you're calm, your breath, a breath of fresh air for people. You're a relief for people. You are a leader, whether or not you're in a leadership position, and you soothe everyone. It's just like kids in a family when people come, oh, my kids are crazy at home and all that. The first question is, okay, well, how are the parents? How are the parents showing up? Because oftentimes the kids, because emotions are so contagious, they feel all the emotions and they're acting out what the adult is feeling. But when the adult is calm, the child also calms down, right? We all feed off of each other, and the little ones are the most sensitive, of course. But if you take anything away from today, I want you to take away that you have so much more power than you know over your own mind, and therefore over your ability to show up at your best. And I want to share something else with you today. Also, is that sometimes we're hardest on ourselves. And I teach executives at the Yale School of Management. I teach emotional intelligence, among other things. And again and again, I see all these leaders coming in the room, and they have so many abilities and they have so many talents. And the biggest thing standing in their way is their relationship with their own self. You can complain about, I'm in a toxic workplace or a toxic relationship, but how many people are walking around in a toxic relationship with their own self, really hard on themselves? And whenever I ask, how many of you are self-critical, 95 to 100% of the room will say, me. There's this idea, well, if you're self-critical, doesn't that lead to self-improvement? I mean, isn't that what you need? No. The data shows that when you're self-critical, and that means sort of beating yourself up when you make mistakes, highly kind of harsh on yourself, it actually leads to more anxiety, depression, less resilience, all the things that we don't want, right? But here, before I keep talking, let's do a little experiment over chat, because this is a good one. So I want you got to be a little authentic in this one, but I know you can do it. Let me know, what are some words you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Okay, so just pop that in the chat. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake? What are some words you use? This is really powerful when everyone participates. So please use the chat and let me know, what are some words or things you say to yourself? Okay, why did I do that? What else? What else do you say? Seriously, I messed up. I'm so dumb. Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm so dumb, or worse, right? Those are the kind of, okay, I got an F word here too. Yeah. Okay, so how could I be so careless, so stupid, so negligent? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Now, this is what most people say, okay? And now I want another response. What would you say to your best friend who's going to call you right after this, and they made a mistake and they're feeling terrible about themselves? What do you say to them? Okay, so now tell me, what do you say to them? Write that in the chat. What do you say to your best friend who just made a mistake? You're amazing and it will pass. Don't worry. It's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself a break. You know better than that. It will be okay. We've got this. It's okay. You got through it last time. You'll get it through. You empathize with them and say, don't be so hard on yourself. Okay. So thank you. It's so interesting to read through the chat too, because it's so hard sometimes to read through how people talk to themselves. And then you see how they talk to another person. So why wouldn't you talk to other person the same way, to yourself, the way you would to your best friend? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Have you ever considered that question? Because what's the difference between you and the other person? You live in different bodies. That's the only difference. Okay. So, and what I have to tell you, of all the executives that I see, high level, talented execs that come through, the one person in the room who doesn't raise their hand when I ask, are you highly self-critical, is so powerful. I don't mean powerful by like their position. I mean how they show up. So powerful. I call it sovereign. I actually wrote a book called Sovereign, because I saw this. I thought, no, this is the self-criticism is so destructive. And when you're able to cultivate that self-compassion, where you just treat yourself the way you would treat your friend, research shows you're happier, you have better mental health, you have better physical health, you have better sleep, you have better relationships. And the list goes on. It's sort of the secret to resilience. And to me, these practices, the breathing, the meditation, are, a profound act of self-love, really, a profound act of self-care that allows you then to show up in the world the way you most want to, the way that at your best, as your best self, and also as your happiest self. So if there's anything you take away from today, I would love for you to take away this idea of, can I treat myself the way I treat my best friend? Can I do some breathing exercises throughout the day to help calm my mind and let me show up as my best self? Perhaps consider learning a training like the sky breath meditation, and also meditation. And that is, the final thing that I'll say here is this idea of meditation. There's so much data on its impact on our brain for emotional intelligence. It strengthens self-awareness, which makes you more emotional intelligent, emotion regulation, your ability to handle your emotions, self-control. It increases positive emotion. The more you meditate, the happier you are. And it also strengthens your cognitive abilities, attention, memory, focus, and creativity. Basically everything that we need to succeed in life. And there is an app that I love, that I use daily, called Sattva, Sattva. Maybe someone could put it in the chat. Anyway, that is completely free. You can do meditations on it. And it's just so easy. Sometimes meditation can seem so hard and onerous, but honestly, if you're being guided and you have an app on your phone, it just, and sometimes people feel like, oh, well, I just don't have time. I'm so busy. We're all busy. But think about how much time you waste every day. How much time do we waste every day? What if we took like 15 minutes of that and just did a meditation, did some breathing? What would happen? I always think we're all sitting on a gold mine. We're sitting on a gold mine. And how do we access that? It is by these kinds of practices. And you don't know, do the experiments. I always just think just act like a scientist. Do an experiment for 40 days. Like, for 40 days, I'm going to do breathing. For 40 days, I'm going to do meditation. And if it works for me, I'll stick to it. If it doesn't, then I'll just drop it, right? But don't walk by the gold mine. Don't stop digging. Just dig for 40 days to give it a shot. So I will leave you with that. And it's my pleasure to be here with you today, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Emma, for that fantastic session. We do have a couple of minutes for questions, so if you want to drop a few questions in the chat, Emma is going to stick around and see if there are any other questions that may come up. Again, my name is Matt Nank from Sky Schools. Our exciting team jumped right from Governor Evers to Dr. Seppala, so I wasn't able to introduce her, but you saw her amazingness and all the different things. If you had a chance to check out her bio, she teaches at the Yale School of Management and runs the Women's Leadership Institute there, and also is a lead scientist at the Compassion Project at Stanford. So really a tremendous thinker. So any questions? We're watching the chat if you have any. Otherwise, feel free to share this recording with colleagues and others. And we know that your nervous system is the key intervention in our schools. We have a lot of things that come down the educational pipeline. And if we could just all center and ground ourselves, that we could have tremendous impact on test scores, on attendance, on all the numbers that you're trying to drive in your schools.
Yes, Thomas, my book is called Sovereign. You can find it on Amazon. Thank you for asking.
And there was a question earlier. Can somebody use the phrase about high traffic and the traffic in the mind? Is that can they steal that and use that with their students? Emma, was the question.
What's the question?
Can they steal the phrase about traffic in the mind?
Please.
Right? Cars, yes.
Please use it all. Whatever we can do, right? I always think, what can we do? What can we do every day, each and every one of us, to uplift other people? That's it. And what the research shows is when you uplift others, guess what happens to you? You get uplifted. I mean, there's so much data on this, but I'll summarize it in one sentence. When you uplift others, it uplifts you. So it's win-win. Yes, Catherine, any book recommendations for K-12 staff to promote their own SEL? I mean, that's one of the reasons I wrote my books, The Happiness Track and then Sovereign. I would start with Sovereign. That's my latest one. But that's kind of my goal in what I teach and everything I share. How can higher ed institution engage with the Sky Schools program? I'm going to let Matt send that information, right?
Yep.
Because you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
about that.
So earlier, we can also drop the website in this. The campus program is called Sky Campus Happiness, and that's a great team. I'm happy to connect with you. I'll drop their website in the chat as well.
Great. Okay.
Thank you again, Dr. Seppala, and thanks
Thank you,
everyone for attending.
everyone.
I think Jim Vedder's going to come back on now and close out our session. So thanks so much.
Wow, thank you so much for that powerful session and really engaging session. Okay, so this is one session in a whole day of these amazing SEL Summit sessions. There will be another session right at the top of the hour, and that session will be around Let's Talk SEL, turning language challenges into opportunities. So there are some parts of the United States and other parts of the world where even just saying the term SEL can be problematic. So how do we keep doing this important work even in a situation like that? If you are looking to see any of the earlier summit sessions, the recordings are being posted on the SEL Day website in the summit section, as will the recording of the session that just ended, that powerful session. And if you haven't already, please also go to the badges page. If you click login, you can create an account and go ahead and claim your badges for your SEL Day activities. So that's it for this session. We will look forward to seeing you in the next session or the next one or the next one.